The most foolish heist in America. The American dream has always celebrated those who push boundaries. Whether in science, art, or, on occasion, criminal mischief. And when it comes to robberies gone wrong, the United States has no shortage of stories. From the bold to the bungled. But perhaps none have captured the public's imagination quite like the ill-fated heist attempted by Carl Gugasian in 1995. Dubbed, the Dumb and Dumber Heist. This story is an all-too-perfect combination of poor planning, misplaced confidence, and a string of laughable mishaps that would lead to Gugasian's swift capture and an unforgettably embarrassing story for the ages. A man of mischief, Carl Gugasian. Carl Gugasian was not the stereotypical criminal mastermind, but he had something that many others lacked: persistence. As a child, Gugasian had always been drawn to the thrill of the chase. Growing up in a small Pennsylvania town, he was fascinated by spy novels and action movies, always dreaming of a life filled with excitement. And as he aged, this fascination transformed into something darker. However, despite having a more than adequate education and a variety of options available to him, Gugasian seemed magnetized toward a life of crime. But it wasn't merely crime he wanted to make a mark. To be remembered. And so, after years of petty theft and escalating encounters with law enforcement, Gugasian took his shot at the big time with a plan to rob a bank. A plan he was convinced was foolproof. The target: the bank with no alarms. To most people, a bank is a place of security, trust, and unbreakable walls. But to Gugasian, banks were vaults of opportunity, waiting to be cracked. After scouring Pennsylvania for the ideal target, he settled on a small, unassuming bank near a deserted strip mall. The bank had no alarms, minimal security personnel, and was nestled in an area that promised easy escape routes. Gugasian thought he had struck gold. His plan was as simple as it was audacious. He would break in during the late hours, swiftly make off with the money, and vanish into the night. However, as any seasoned bank robber would tell you, simplicity is often a facade that hides a world of complications. The heist begins, and almost immediately goes wrong. On the evening of October 13, 1995, Gugasian prepared himself for the heist of his life. Armed with a small caliber gun, a ski mask, and a duffel bag for the money, he approached the bank with a steely determination. But even before he made it to the entrance, he was confronted with his first problem. The bank's front door was locked. In his excitement and poor planning, Gugasian had forgotten to account for the fact that the bank would be closed at the hour he planned his grand entrance. Instead of retreating, Gugasian panicked, convinced that time was slipping away. He chose to break the front window with his gun. The loud crash immediately alerted a nearby security guard, who approached the bank to investigate. But Gugasian's troubles were only just beginning. In his frenzy to smash the window, he had accidentally dropped his duffel bag, spilling its contents across the bank's doorstep. Frantic, he scrambled to gather his things, leaving a cleared trail that would later be crucial in identifying him. Fumbling through the bank, with the broken window giving him entry, Gugasian finally made it inside. But his clumsiness continued to plague him. As he leapt over the counter to reach the teller drawers, he tripped and knocked over several items on the counter. The noise echoed through the empty bank, setting off a chain reaction. Meanwhile, the security guard outside, now fully aware of a robbery in progress, had called the police. Unaware of this, Gugasian struggled to open the teller drawers, which were secured with a simple lock that he hadn't bothered to learn how to pick. Desperation mounting, Gugasian pulled at the drawers with all his might, causing them to break open with a loud clatter. But in his haste, he overlooked the fact that these drawers were only stocked with smaller denominations, reserved for regular customer transactions. He ended up with handfuls of small bills, barely amounting to a couple $100. A dramatic escape, sort of. Realizing he was running out of time, Gugasian grabbed what little money he could and attempted to escape. He dashed back toward the broken window but slipped on a discarded piece of paper he had previously knocked to the ground. The fall was comically dramatic. His ski mask was half ripped off in the process, leaving his face partially exposed to the security camera he had completely missed when entering. Determined to make it out, he stumbled to his feet and, in a last-ditch effort, dived through the broken window. But the outside world was no more forgiving than the inside. As he staggered to his getaway car, police sirens blared in the distance. In his panic, Gugasian couldn't locate his car keys. He searched his pockets frantically, only to realize they were still inside the bank, left near the teller drawers in his frenzied attempt to grab cash. And in a twist of irony, the security guard, who had initially been too hesitant to engage directly, watched the entire spectacle unfold from a safe distance, reporting every detail to the arriving officers. The aftermath and the laughingstock of local news. When the police finally apprehended Gugasian, he was found a short distance from the bank, exhausted, humiliated, and hiding behind a dumpster. His capture was swift, but the repercussions were long-lasting. The local news media seized on the story, painting Gugasian as the embodiment of criminal incompetence. His face, now fully visible, thanks to the removed ski mask footage, became a staple on every news channel. His tale serving as a humorous cautionary tale about the perils of poor planning. In interviews after his arrest, Gugasian maintained that he almost got away with it, a testament to his denial of the obvious. His missteps, from his oversight of the bank's operating hours to his inability to secure a significant sum, were dissected in great detail by criminal analysts and comedians alike. Some called it the dumbest heist in American history, while others branded him as America's least successful bank robber. Analysis: why this heist was destined to fail. The story of Carl Gugasian's botched robbery is more than just a funny anecdote. It's a study in the pitfalls of overconfidence and poor planning. What makes it so fascinating, and frankly, so absurd, is that almost every possible error one could make in a heist was made here. First and foremost, Gugasian's failure to research his target thoroughly doomed his plan from the start. Any experienced robber would have scouted the bank, noting its operating hours, the security measures in place, and even the type of cash available in the teller drawers. Gugasian did none of this, relying solely on his misguided belief that he could simply walk in, take what he wanted, and leave undetected. Moreover, his lack of backup plans was a glaring weakness. The mark of a true professional is the ability to adapt when things go wrong. But Gugasian's plan was so rigid, so inflexible, that the moment things began to unravel, he was left with no options but to continue forward, sinking deeper into a cycle of mistakes. The broken window, the spilled bag, the forgotten keys, each blunder compounded the previous one, leading him to a point of no return. In the end, what makes the story of Carl Gugasian so compelling is not merely his incompetence, but the audacity of his ambition combined with his lack of preparation. It's a story that highlights the importance of preparation, the dangers of overconfidence, and the undeniable truth that sometimes reality is stranger and more amusing than fiction. And while Gugasian may not have walked away with a single dollar, he did manage to secure a lasting legacy as the perpetrator of one of America's dumbest heists. A tale that will live on as a humorous reminder that sometimes the best laid plans of thieves and men often go awry. In the annals of American crime, Carl Gugasian's heist may not have been the most daring, but it was undeniably one of the most memorable. The failed heist by Carl Gugasian is more than a humorous misadventure. It reveals profound lessons about the importance of preparation, adaptability, and humility in the face of ambition. At its core, Gugasian's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overconfidence and the pitfalls of haphazard planning. While he entered the bank with a strong sense of purpose, he underestimated the complexity of his task and overestimated his own abilities. His lack of foresight was evident from the start, neglecting basic details, such as the bank's hours and security measures, not only jeopardized his heist but also exposed his recklessness. This flawed preparation reflects a common pattern in failed endeavors, both criminal and otherwise. Those who neglect the foundational steps often find themselves overwhelmed by the consequences. Furthermore, Gugasian's rigid approach illustrates the risk of inflexibility. His inability to adapt when obstacles emerged, such as the locked door and forgotten keys, compounded his mistakes. A more flexible approach, with contingency plans in place, might have allowed him to pivot and avoid the downward spiral that led to his capture. His experience emphasizes that adaptability is essential, especially when navigating high-stakes situations. In a broader sense, Gugasian's Heist highlights the interplay between confidence and competence. Ambition can drive people to attempt great feats. But without the necessary skill, knowledge, and humility, it can lead to disastrous, and often absurd, outcomes. In the end, his missteps underscore a fundamental truth: success in any endeavor requires a careful balance of vision, preparation, and the humility to recognize one's limits. Gugasian's failure reminds us that no plan is immune to errors. And without the right foundation, ambition alone can be a path to humiliation rather than triumph.